Good evening and welcome back to Total Football Analysis. The Premier League is back and we are bringing you live coverage of Manchester City versus Arsenal. I'm absolutely buzzing for the return of the Premier League and I'm joined by my co-commentator and one of the leading analysts in football. It's the brilliant Lee Scott. Lee, welcome back, mate. How are you, first of all?
I'm very good. How are you?
Not too bad. Like I said, buzzing that the Premier League is back. We've really enjoyed the Bundesliga stuff, of course we have. But when you have an affiliation with a team in the Premier League, I think it's very hard for that not to be your number one. So I am very much looking forward to this commentary. Perhaps not so much the game, though, given that, of course, Manchester City are the favourites to get all 3 points here at the Etihad. Let's run you through the two teams and we'll get Lee's thoughts on those teams. Let's start with the host. It's Ederson in goal. It's a back four of Kyle Walker, Eric Garcia, Aymeric Laporte and Benjamin Mendy. Across the middle of the park, it's David Silva, Ilkay Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne, with Riyad Mahrez, Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling leading the line for the hosts. Lee, obviously, Sergio Aguero's not in that starting 11. That's, I guess, the one that stands out to me. What also stands out is the fact that Leroy Sané is back on the bench. What do you make of this Manchester City side? Any surprises there for you?
I think the main surprise is that it's a team lineup that it's as close to the strongest team as you're probably likely to see from Pep Guardiola. He's renowned in some cases, if people play fantasy football, for example, there's always some criticism over the fact that his team lineup seem to vary so much from week to week. I think it's interesting to see Gabriel Jesus in the starting lineup. There isn't that much of a drop-off in terms of their output between Aguero and Jesus, but obviously very different players in terms of their movements and positions. I think it's interesting to see Gundogan at the base of midfield instead of Rodri. Rodri's on the bench. And of course, Eric Garcia starting at centre-back position. He's a young defensive player who's extremely highly rated at the club. Pep Guardiola is known to love him as much for his leadership capabilities at such a young age as anything else. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how he slots in with the rest of the team.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the Arsenal side now as well. Plenty of surprises in this one. I tried to predict the lineup earlier on and I've got it horribly wrong. It's Bernd Leno in between the sticks for the Gunners. It's a back four of Kieran Tierney, Shkodran Mustafi, Pablo Mari and Hector Bellerin. Kieran Tierney back in the side, starting for Arsenal. Shkodran Mustafi alongside Pablo Mari. And then moving into the midfield, it's Matteo Guendouzi, Granit Xhaka, with Bukayo Saka, we think, from the left. Edward Nketiah through the middle with Joe Willock. And, of course, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, we think, is going to start from the right-hand side. We'll have to confirm that once we kick off. But Mikel Arteta has really mixed it up here. And the big talking point is that Mesut Ozil is not even in the squad.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think Mesut Ozil is always a player who courts controversy to an extent. I think every player, when Mikel Arteta took over at Arsenal, was given a clean slate, if you like. We've seen the likes of Granit Xhaka come back from what looked like he's already reached a point of no return when he obviously reacted so badly to the fans and getting substituted in a previous game. But Arteta's come back in. Xhaka's been reassured. He's been told that he has a place in the team and he's been allowed to come back in. We're seeing the same with Shkodran Mustafi at centre half. He was another player who was out of favour and seems to have came back in under Arteta. So it's interesting that Mesut Ozil is obviously there's something, whether it's fitness, whether it's an issue in the squad or an issue with the player and the coach. It remains to be seen, and I'm sure we'll find out more as the week goes on. But certainly losing a player with that creative spark that Ozil definitely has is always going to be an issue in a game like this.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to us via the Total Football Analysis YouTube channel or the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel, because we're also streaming there tonight, please do head over to the Hot Mic app, download it with the promo code TFA2020, and you can sync our commentary with your television pictures. We've got a couple of guests joining us at half time as well as we bring you full coverage of this one. Manchester City versus Arsenal. We're a few moments away from the kickoff. If you haven't already as well, give us a follow on the Hot Mic app and please share the broadcast too with your friends and family. Lee, I guess Manchester City are the favourites going into this one. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They've had a far better season than Arsenal, although they've been a little bit off of the boil and they've fallen a long way behind Liverpool this season. But do you expect Manchester City to dominate the game, control the tempo of the game and ultimately get all 3 points tonight?
I think so. I think it's difficult. I mean, you've got to take this whole season in context, really. And the context is that Liverpool have been so dominant. They've been so good, so much above everybody else. That's made Manchester City look more ordinary, if you like. Whereas the previous seasons under Pep Guardiola, Manchester City have been the dominant side. So they're still an extremely good footballing side. We know what to expect from them. We know that they'll look to dominate possession. We know that they'll look to play in the half spaces, that we know that there'll be an attacking threat. But if any coach understands the way that Pep Guardiola likes his team to play, it's Mikel Arteta. I mean, Arteta was the right-hand man at Manchester City, and he got to the point where he was being given more and more responsibility within the squad to make tactical suggestions, to be involved in all these discussions with Guardiola. So it'll be interesting to see whether Arteta sets up Arsenal to counter that in any way, or whether he just wants them to play their own game, which is a very similar style of football to that Pep Guardiola. Make no mistake, that this Arsenal team will try to play the same kind of way if they're playing from the front foot. So I think that'll be the most interesting narrative as the game goes on.
Absolutely. And of course, the Arsenal players are out on the field, and due to the new protocols that have been put in place, the away side are allowed to come onto the field first. As I said, if you're watching via Sky Sports, you can sync our commentary with your television pictures, and that way you will have it all in line and you'll be able to enjoy our alternative broadcast. Of course, all the players are wearing the message of Black Lives Matter on the back of their shirts. It's a great cause. It's something that's really, really important, and it's great to see so many high-profile athletes and stars all getting together for such a good cause. It's a great thing, isn't it, Lee?
It's huge. I mean, this we've got to the point now within society where it feels like we're on the verge of change, and a change that's going to be extremely significant. And I think that having professional footballers come out in support of this and be so adamant that it's not just going to be fleeting support. We've obviously seen the effect that Marcus Rashford's had this week in overturning government policy to ensure free school meals over the summer holidays for children who need that service. That's huge, and that's footballers now standing up and taking social responsibility, making good use of the fact that they have such a high profile. And I get the feeling that for those who watched the previous match, the Aston Villa Sheffield United match, on the starting whistle, on the first whistle, all of the players and officials on the pitch took a knee. I'd imagine we'll see the same thing again, and that is again another way for them to support Black Lives Matter and to make sure that people are paying attention and are listening to this cause.
Absolutely. Manchester City are on the field now as well. We're ready for kickoff here at the Etihad Stadium. It's Manchester City versus Arsenal. Of course, City looking to try and close the gap somewhat on Liverpool, although I guess the title is pretty much a foregone conclusion already. Arsenal, of course, in the hunt for a European place still. The top four is not completely out of reach for the Gunners, but it's going to take an incredible run of results for them to get themselves back in contention. Mikel Arteta, of course, taking over the side in December. We're going to have a minute's silence now for those who sadly lost their lives due to COVID-19. Referee blows his whistle and we're pretty much ready to get underway now at the Etihad Stadium. Of course, Pep Guardiola looking very somber there. Of course, he sadly lost his mother to the virus, which is horrible. It's always horrible to lose someone you love, regardless of the circumstances. But this is something that will have really impacted on Pep Guardiola's life, and you can understand why. He was one of the managers actually who wasn't in favour of the Premier League resuming. And as Lee mentioned, we see the players take to the knee in support of the Black Lives Matter campaign. Arsenal who are going to kick us off, and we're underway at the Etihad Stadium. The Gunners attacking from right to left as you look on your television screens in there. Navy shirts with yellow trimmings, black shorts and navy socks. Manchester City shooting from left to right in their traditional sky blue. Baffles me, Lee. Arsenal have got two other kits, none of which have any blue on them, yet they've decided to wear blue at Manchester City.
Yeah, there's never any logic to the away kits in football these days, is there? It's interesting to note right from the start that Aubameyang looks like he's playing from the left-hand side and Saka is playing out on the right.
Yeah, strange that. Didn't expect that. But he's clearly wanting to have his wingers play with that inverted sort of advantage. Here's Matteo Guendouzi in possession for the Gunners now. Hector Bellerin. Shkodran Mustafi on the ball now. Pablo Mari, of course, on loan from Flamengo in Brazil. Looks like the club are going to sign him on a permanent deal, but we haven't had any confirmation yet. Eddie Nketiah's in behind here for the Gunners. Lifts it over Ederson. What an opportunity that is early on for Eddie Nketiah. Flag's gone up.
That was a huge opportunity, even with the flag going up. That just shows Arsenal that they are going to be able to get in behind this defence. And it was just a straight ball. Bernd Leno, for once, going long over the top of the defence. A little bit more awareness there from Nketiah. He should have been staying online and checking the line before the pass was played. That was actually poor from the striker. Perhaps just because the game's so young, he's not actually up to speed yet. But he also should have done better with the finish if you really think about it.
Absolutely. Not only that,
a young striker
go ahead.
He's a young striker who's renowned in his ability to finish as well, so it's quite surprising that he lifted that ball over from that position.
Absolutely, and Aymeric Laporte as well had an absolute nightmare there. He completely misjudged that, and Eddie Nketiah putting pressure on the Manchester City defence again, getting in between Eric Garcia and Kyle Walker there. It's back with Ederson now. Here comes Mendy down the left-hand side for the hosts. Bukayo Saka chasing him back. Ball delivered in towards the middle. Raheem Sterling looked as though he got a foot to it. He was taken out there by Pablo Mari. Looks like Manchester City have got a free kick right on the edge of the penalty area here.
And I think we can expect to see that quite a lot tonight. You'll see Raheem Sterling playing more centrally. Riyad Mahrez out in the opposite flank on the right-hand side will hug the line a little bit more and try and get one-on-one with Kieran Tierney. But Arsenal are going to have to be careful because of the movements that Sterling will make. Bernard Mendy is capable of getting up and down that left flank and stretching the play from that side, so it gives Sterling the freedom. But this is a great position for Manchester City from this area.
Pablo Mari will have to learn very, very quickly that you've got to be sharper in the Premier League in those situations. It's a really dangerous free kick for Manchester City right on the edge of Arsenal's penalty area. 3 minutes played. Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan are standing around it. Gundogan looks as though he's walking away, though. It's going to be Kevin De Bruyne from the edge of the Arsenal penalty box. Kevin De Bruyne, and it's tipped over the bar by Bernd Leno. First corner of the game. Simply can't afford to give away free kicks against players of such immense quality. Fortunately for Arsenal, Bernd Leno was equal to that.
I think, if anything, it was maybe a little bit too close for De Bruyne from that area. Normally, he'd prefer to be slightly further out where you get the dip and the drop on the ball.
Absolutely. Big thank you to those of you who are joining us live at the moment. Don't forget you can Sync the commentary with your television pictures if you're watching us via either of the two YouTube channels, whether that is Total Football Analysis or the Chronicles of a Gooner. Don't forget to follow us as well via the Total Football Analysis app if you haven't already. Seeing Granit Xhaka receiving some attention there from the Arsenal physios after that clash. Looks to be in some discomfort. Mikel Arteta certainly not in the right attire for these conditions. Pretty sure that's not what a raincoat looks like, but there you go. Arsene Wenger would have been wrapped up in his sleeping bag at this point.
He would have been.
Granit Xhaka looks in some discomfort there. It looks like it's a problem with the right ankle.
It doesn't look good. I mean, you can see the way the physio's actually not doing anything at the moment. It looks likely that he's either going to come off or they're waiting for a bit of time to see if the pain subsides, but it's certainly not looking good at this point for Xhaka. And that's 5 minutes in, and potentially Arsenal could be forcing a change already. Yep, looks like there is going to be a change.
This is not good news for Arsenal, and for all the criticism that Granit Xhaka gets from sections of the Arsenal fan base, he is a really, really important player to this side.
Yes.
He's a pretty much an ever-present, whoever is the manager. But it looks like he's really done some damage here, and you can see Dani Ceballos scrambling behind the scenes. I don't think he expected to have to be involved so early on, but he's obviously going to have to come on here because Granit Xhaka's problem looks a serious one. We're just seeing it again. He just rolled his ankle.
Yep.
You can see it as the ball comes. He just rolls over the ankle.
He's a player that gives balance to the Arsenal midfield. That's the issue here. Xhaka is the player who will hold his position when Arsenal are in possession. He's been dropping back at the defensive line, making a line of three when they have the ball to alleviate pressure on the defenders and allow Arsenal to progress the ball properly. Now, without him, Dani Ceballos is an excellent progressive midfielder. He's one of the best in Europe, indeed, when he has the ball and when he's in possession of the ball. He came to Arsenal with a reputation that he perhaps hasn't quite lived up to, but he's a completely different profile to Xhaka. Ceballos will try and get on the ball further up the field to what we would have seen Xhaka do. So it'll be interesting to see if either Willock or Guendouzi has to alter his role now in order to balance the team out.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see Ceballos come on to replace him. As you said, I think it will be a like-for-like swap initially. I think Ceballos will sit in that one of those deeper positions. Perhaps Guendouzi will be the furthest deep of the three for now. But we'll have to see how that develops. Of course, Ceballos does, similarly to Granit Xhaka, give you the ability to move the ball forward and progress. But of course, it's not ideal to lose such a key player so early on. And for all the criticism he does get from sections of the club's fan base, he is a very, very important player. Eddie Nketiah underneath that one. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang not really been involved in the game as of yet. Here is Dani Ceballos. Early first touch, looks to slip in. Nketiah skips in between the two Manchester City centre-backs, but he couldn't keep control of the ball. And City get away with that one as De Bruyne switches the play. Here's David Silva in possession now, driving forward. Looks to play a ball in behind for Gabriel Jesus. He gets across. Pablo Mari's there with him. And Pablo Mari concedes the corner. Just signs from both sides, though, that they do have the ability and the vision to slip their forward men in.
And those moments in transition for City are so dangerous when De Bruyne has the ball in the right half space or David Silva in the left half space, that their ability just to thread the pass, defensive lines have to be very careful in those moments.
Here comes the ball into the penalty area. Pablo Mari gets his head to it. Ball drops there to Riyad Mahrez, who fired it back across the penalty area. He wants a corner. Just see the replay once more. De Bruyne's delivery. Pablo Mari got ahead to it. In came Riyad Mahrez on his unfavoured right foot. Smashed it towards the far post. It was certainly going wide. But it looked as though Hector Bellerin may have got a touch on it, but the referee has decided otherwise, and it's an Arsenal goal kick. If you're having trouble synchronizing our commentary with your pictures, you can use the manual sync button, and we're currently on the 8th minute and 53rd second. Please do let us know in the live chat if you're having any problems, and we'll be able to provide you with as many markers as possible. Here's Benjamin Mendy for Manchester City. Aymeric Laporte takes a touch and plays it back to his goalkeeper Edison. Under a little bit of pressure from Eddie Nketiah, but it's with Eric Garcia now. Here's Kyle Walker. Arsenal, of course, unbeaten in the Premier League in 2020 so far. There's a huge caveat to that they haven't played for pretty much 3 months. But, you know, it's an encouraging start from Mikel Arteta. And have you been surprised, Lee, by the way he's at the very least tightened Arsenal up defensively?
Not surprised. I think that we knew enough about Arteta as a coach before he came on into the job. I think that he's done the right thing as a young coach. He's gone away and he's learnt his trade a little bit. He's obviously had a great apprenticeship under Pep Guardiola, who is, for my money, the best coach currently in the game and has been for quite some time. I think that Arteta will have learnt a lot from Pep Guardiola. He will have understand now how to build the system, but he also understands the importance of having a defensive line that he can rely on. So there is a thought out there that Arsenal aren't quite as attacking as they once were. Perhaps under Emery to an extent, Emery was far more of a systemised coach. He wasn't somebody who was overly well suited to the Premier League and to Arsenal. But now Arteta's built from the back. He's getting the defence right, and the attack will follow. I think that next season is really going to be the most important one for Arteta and for Arsenal.
Indeed, as Kieran Tierney brought the ball forward there for the Gunners, but Manchester City have it back. Interesting that Guendouzi is now the one dropping in that hole to collect the ball from the centre-backs.
No, that's a lot of people think that Guendouzi is a sitter, is a holding midfielder, but that's not his game at all. He's more all action. He's more box to box. He wants to push forward. He sometimes lacks the positional discipline to stay in that slot. So Man City could well look to capitalise on that as the game goes forward.
Rare loose touch from David Silva there, and Arsenal have it back. Joe Willock looks for Emerick Aubameyang on this left-hand side. He's not going to be able to keep that in, though.
Interesting story today that Aubameyang was close to joining Manchester City a couple of seasons ago before Pep Guardiola pulled the plug on the deal because he wasn't sure about the player's mentality. Like Arteta came out and said that they got that one completely wrong once they realised how professional he was once he came into Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk about that before he joined the Gunners as well, as De Bruyne plays Sterling in behind, inside the Arsenal penalty area, 1-on-1 with Hector Bellerin, looks to put it across the box, but he's cut out. And Arsenal will break away. But yeah, there were question marks about that when he joined Arsenal as well. And given everything that's going on with the contract situation and all the speculation about him potentially moving away, I think he's done really well to just keep his head down and get on with things. He made a couple of comments the other day which were a little bit questionable maybe, but you know, other than that, it's been pretty exemplary, his behaviour.
And in his output as well, one of the most important attacking players in this Arsenal squad, especially when they don't have Lacazette or Pepe on this pitch at the moment. He's going to be really important for this game going forward.
Absolutely. He's got an average of a goal in every 1.5 games since joining the club. That speaks for itself. Here is Eddie Nketiah now in possession. To Bellerin's come forward on the right-hand side for the Gunners. Here's Bukayo Saka. Playing on the right-hand side. Delivers into the box. Nketiah looks to turn it towards goal. He's appealing for a corner. Pretty sure it came straight off of Eddie Nketiah there, though.
Yeah. Interesting to note that Bellerin's getting the ball in that inverted right-back position. He's not out wide. He's allowing Saka to isolate Mendy out on that side, and Bellerin's coming inside to overload the middle and provide a passing combination option. That's obviously something that we've seen Manchester City do over the years, with Kyle Walker especially coming inside in that inverted role. It's interesting to see that Bellerin's doing that. I know that when Maitland-Niles played at right back, he was doing that quite often, coming inside naturally to allow the wide player to have width and to isolate out that side.
Being in that position, it also helps, doesn't it, when Arsenal lose possession, for him to then close the gap with his two centre-backs and essentially make it a back three if the left-back has bombed on. So certainly one of the key tweaks that Mikel Arteta has made since coming here.
And we're not seeing it tonight from Manchester City at all. Both full-backs are staying wide and playing traditionally, if you like. And that's something that he does like to change during matches quite often. If the game's going against them, one of the first things you'll tend to see is one of the fullbacks moving into that inverted position. Just as you say, it gives a little bit more control both with and without the ball.
Indeed, it does. Pablo Mari. His header's picked up by Kevin De Bruyne. Arsenal appealing for a free kick. Looks as though the referee's pulled the play back. Waiting to see the replay of that. Marie got his head to it. In came De Bruyne, a slightly high foot, nothing malicious. I think his eyes were firmly on the ball, but he's caught Dani Ceballos there, and Arsenal have a free kick as a result. Now got a throw in on this far side. 14 and a half minutes played at the Etihad. Manchester City 0, Arsenal 0. Here's Shkodran Mustafi in possession. Pablo Mari, of course, formerly of Manchester City. Had a couple of loan spells on the continent before moving to Flamengo in Brazil. Here's Bellerin. Now Ceballos. Kieran Tierney will drive forward for Arsenal here. Here's Aubameyang on the left. Looks to deliver into the penalty area. His cross is blocked by Kyle Walker, and the Gunners have a corner.
That was well constructed by Arsenal, moving the ball from one side to the other. Tierney driving inside into half space before looking for the ball outside to Aubameyang. That's an interesting partner play from them.
As Pablo Mari and Shkodran Mustafi go up for this corner. Matteo Guendouzi, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang also in the penalty area. It's Bukayo Saka who's going to take it, left-footed outswinger in towards that near post area. It's headed clear. Only as far as Bellerin. He looks to switch the play back out to Saka. Always a difficult pass there. Gabriel Jesus concedes a throw-in.
The game still hasn't quite settled down, I think. I mean, we've got to remember this is these teams at back of the pitch for the first time properly.
Indeed, and we saw it with the Bundesliga, didn't we, Lee? We've covered quite a fair few games since the Bundesliga restart, and we've seen that, haven't we? Early stages of games have been a little bit cagey, and I guess as the season's gone on, we've started to see a better quality of football, and it's just practice, isn't it? It's just being out of practice.
Yeah, it's match practice. It's legs in the game, if you like. They've got to build up their capacity to play at game level. That takes a little bit of time. You can play friendlies, you can play in training, play behind closed doors, get matches against lower league sides if you want to, but nothing really matches the tempo of actual competitive football. We're not seeing a lot of pressure from Man City so far. It's interesting. They're allowing Arsenal to play out from the back, and so far Arsenal are playing around them quite easily without City getting any real pressure on the ball.
That's right. Bernd Leno very comfortable in possession at the moment. You can see Manchester City are pushed quite high up the pitch, but they're not applying the pressure, as you say. Leno goes out towards that right flank. City have it now, though, with David Silva. Here's Aymeric Laporte. He's a player that they missed at the, particularly, I think it was October that he picked up the injury.
Yeah, massively.
Massive miss for Pep Guardiola's side. How much of a difference in terms of points and that the gap between themselves and Liverpool, do you think that would have been significantly smaller had he remained fit?
I think it would have been smaller. Whether it would be significant or not, I couldn't say for sure. I think it's quite difficult, especially when you're talking about a purely defensive player. But Laporte is extremely important for Manchester City because he's the one who starts the attacks. He's the player that Guardiola trusts. He likes having a left-footed passer in the defensive line when he's progressing the ball. He likes the way that opens up the field on that side, if you like. But Eric Garcia on this side is just as capable of playing those kind of passes. It's interesting to see the two of them playing together. I think they'll complement one another very, very well. The City backline looks very balanced so far.
Here is Riyad Mahrez. Dani Ceballos working hard to help out his left back there. Shown a different side to his game since Mikel Arteta came in, Dani Ceballos. He's shown that he does have a dogged side. He does put himself about and he does work very, very hard. And I don't think Arsenal fans saw a lot of that under Unai Emery. But since Mikel Arteta's come in and he's been asked to play in those deeper positions one or two times now, we've started to see that side of him as well.
And that's something that he showed in Spain. I mean, fans of Spanish football will have seen that side to him. He's a player who's very determined, who makes these driving runs through the midfield, plays through the midfield, provides a goal threat, but he also works very hard out of possession. I think that he's got to the stage in his career now, though, that he needs to make a permanent breakaway and go and find a club where he can play first team football properly and really imprint himself on the club. Whether that will be at Arsenal one day remains to be seen.
Certainly, based on what we've seen of him in the recent games. I'm not going to say recent weeks because they haven't played for ages or what feels like ages, but he certainly started to improve, and it'll be a real shame if Arsenal were to lose him now at a time where he's really starting to make a mark on the team.
Definitely. I think that Arteta as a coach, you can really bring out the best in him. He's got that. Don't forget that Arteta worked so hard on individual players at Manchester City. He's credited for the improvement in Sterling and players like that and teaching them about space.
Here comes Kyle Walker driving forward. Knocks the ball past Pablo Mari. He's past him. Kyle Walker cuts it back. Gabriel Jesus lets it run. Not sure what he thought was behind him there. Opportunity
It looks like
goes
might
begging.
Be hurt. But he pulled up there as Walker went past him. He looks like he's pulled up and holding his leg.
To see that once more. Kyle Walker certainly got past him with great ease, didn't he? He did
It's far too easy. You see it there. Whether that's just a slight knock or a strain, I assume he's up and walking. We've not seen him yet. Still down.
That's all Arsenal need, having already had to lose Granit Xhaka. Thank God they're allowed 5 substitutes this evening rather than
there's
3.
no way. There's no way a defensive player should be letting a fullback go past him that easily. I think that the only explanation is that there was a tweak there that slowed him down. But Walker getting into that position is usually far more dangerous. It was a surprise to see him waste that opportunity.
Well, Mikel Arteta's players are dropping like flies, and we've only had 20 minutes here at the Etihad. First, Granit Xhaka with what looked like a relatively serious ankle problem. He's had to make way. He's been replaced by Dani Ceballos, and it looks as though Pablo Mari is in some discomfort here as he confers with the club physio. David Luiz preparing to come on here. It looks as though the decision has been made.
Yeah, the board's out to make the substitution, I think. Players are having a drinks break just now. I believe that they're mandated to have one drinks break halfway through each half.
I understand why they do that in Spain, given the temperatures, but on a rainy night in Manchester, is that really necessary?
No, potentially not. That's unfortunate. I was looking at some data earlier on and I picked out Murray and Mustafi as an interested centre-back partnership for Arsenal, so I was quite excited to see how they got on tonight and how they balanced one another and how they played as a pair. So quite unfortunate for Arteta that he's losing one of them just 22 minutes in.
You did indeed, and you sent me a message earlier, and I'd be honest with you, it's not a partnership that we've seen a great deal of or that I would have picked, I guess, out of choice, but the data makes good reading, and unfortunately we're not going to get to see any more of that by the looks of it because Pablo Mari is going to be replaced.
The game's coming so thick and fast as well. Any of these knocks could be really dangerous for players. A knock that could see you missing 1 or 2 weeks could essentially mean that you're out for 4 games. And 4 league games at this stage of the season could mean a lot for both of these sides still.
We were always going to get injury problems given the break that these players have been forced to have. We were always going to have fitness issues, but I don't think even Mikel Arteta quite anticipated this kind of start. 23 minutes in, he's had to lose 2 key players. David Luiz is going to replace Pablo Mari, and of course he's another one being linked with a move away from the club. It recently came to light, of course, that David Luiz had only signed a 1-year deal with the Gunners, to a lot of people's surprise. And well, it'll be interesting to see how that situation develops as he automatically looks for that long pass. David Luiz is so good at that, picking out people. Defensive ability can often be questioned, but in terms of his ability in possession, I think we can all agree that he's a very talented individual.
Certainly, he's got good leadership qualities as well. Don't forget the World Cup in Brazil. When they were the hosts, he was the player who really galvanised the team and pulled the team on. He was the one who stood up after the huge semi-final defeat to the eventual winners, Germany, and he was the one that faced the media afterwards. And he's a player that I think Mikel Arteta has valued having in the squad so far. if it's much for his intangibles off the field presence as anything else. But you're right, he is defensively sometimes open to a lapse of concentration, which has always been the knock on him throughout his career.
It has, but it's also important to remember he's been part of some fantastic teams as well. Antonio Conte's Chelsea, who were champions, he was a really important part of that back three, wasn't he?
He was, and that was partly because he had obviously more cover play in the back three and more freedom to use that passing range when he has possession of the ball. I mean, look for him to play those diagonal passes out to the opposite flank as often as he can.
Is Hector Bellerin in possession for the Gunners now? Joe Willock under pressure from Raheem Sterling. He plays it into Eddie Nketiah. Bukayo Saka knocks it past Aymeric Laporte now. Looks to deliver into the penalty area towards Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but cross wasn't quite accurate enough. But Arsenal have it back after a miscue at the back from Manchester City. Aubameyang fires at goal. Never troubling Ederson from that distance, though. Ambitious effort from Aubameyang, but worth taking on.
Certainly, I mean, in that situation, you've always got to try and get a shot and goal. And the defender gives the ball away, so clearly in the final third, the ball was just set back to him. He looked to curl the ball. Again, a little bit more match practice. He might have been sharper in the finish there, but it's a great build-up play on the far side from Arsenal there. And Nketiah coming in and playing with Saka and interlinking. And that's something that we don't necessarily associate with Eddie Nketiah too much. He's got a reputation as a goal scorer, as a poacher, as a penalty area player. But obviously, he is capable of dropping back into midfield and linking play.
Don't forget, guys, if you're watching us via the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel or the Total Football Analysis YouTube channel, come over to the Hot Mic app, download it with the promo code TFA2020, and you can sync our commentary with your television pictures. A big hello to everyone watching us on those two channels. I can see there's plenty of you watching us over at the Chronicles of a Gooner. Come over to the app, and of course to those of you watching on Total Football Analysis. If you are watching via the YouTube channels as well, don't forget to hit the like buttons on there as well. That does really, really help, and we thank you for your continued support. Here's Bernd Leno in possession for the Gunners. Seen a lot of the ball early on. Bernd Leno not under any real pressure. Looks up, looks to play it long in the direction of Eddie Nketiah, but Aymeric Laporte gets his head to that. Here's David Silva into Raheem Sterling. Nice touch, lays it off for Kevin De Bruyne. He's got Mahrez to his right. Decides to use him eventually, but Dani Ceballos had tracked his man really, really well. Here's Kieran Tierney now. Looking for Aubameyang. Loose pass. Walker gets it back, and Arsenal managed to crowd him out eventually. Guendouzi almost walking into trouble there. You can see him barking out instructions to his teammates.
It's interesting because there's no pressure on the ball here from Man City. They're content for Arsenal to have possession in that area. They're almost looking to force Arsenal to play that longer pass. They're confident they can win the ball back from that pass from Arsenal. They're just trying to prevent them from playing at the midfield and building up in that way. And so far, it's working. Arsenal are starting to look more and more for the longer pass to the striker.
Given the pace Arsenal have up front, though, that feels like a risky game plan.
Well, we saw in the first minute that Nketiah got in from one of those long straight passes. It went over the head of Laporte. Laporte misjudged it, and Nketiah was in. He was adjudged offside, but a yard either way, and suddenly that's a very good chance on goal. So the threat is there, but it seems to be a definite part of the game plan from City. Normally, you'd see them be more aggressive in the first pass from the goalkeeper at the centre backs, but in this instance, they're sitting off the centre backs as well and allowing them to either go back to the goalkeeper or looking to make them play long.
Manchester City have a throw-in on this near side. Lee, what have you made of the crowd noises being applied by the television broadcasters? I think it's made a wonderful difference.
I'll be honest with you, I switched it off earlier on when I watched the first game this evening. I switched channels to the channel that didn't have it. It felt a little bit manufactured to me. There was a point where there was a nothing free kick in the Sheffield United Aston Villa game, and whoever was controlling the crowd noise made it sound like it was a shot from the edge of the 18-yard box. I understand it. I understand some people prefer it. I don't mind the quiet. I quite often don't actually have commentary on if I'm not a fan of the people who are commentating in a game. I will turn it off if it's full of cliches, for example. I won't watch, so I don't mind watching the game in quiet.
I just need to have some sort of flat bed of sound, even if it's just a basic crowd ambience that never changes. Even then, for me, that's better than nothing.
Yeah, I think I was broken by the World Cup in South Africa with the Vuvuzelas. After that, it's never been the same for me.
Willock puts it into the penalty area for Arsenal. Kyle Walker will chest it down to Ederson. It wasn't quite as accurate as he'd have hoped, but Ederson manages to gather it anyway. Thank you to those who have commented on my new look as well, who are watching us via the video. Here is Aymeric Laporte, gets it back from Gabriel Jesus. Ilkay Gundogan. Now Kyle Walker. Down the line to Riyad Mahrez. He'll look to come inside. The Algerian, you can see, just dropping into those deeper positions in an attempt to get on the ball more and try and have an influence on this game. It's been pretty lackluster from both sides so far. Not a great deal to shout about.
They're just missing that sharpness and movement and the quality and the pace of the pass. Normally, Man City move the ball much better than this, but everything just seems a little bit delayed and a little bit off.
Raheem Sterling unable to keep that one in. Arsenal get a goal kick as a result. Don't forget, if you don't follow us on the app already, hit the follow button. The more followers, the better. And that way, you will never miss a notification of our upcoming broadcasts. Going to be bringing you live coverage as well on Friday evening of Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester United. Jack Cunningham will be in the commentator's seat with David Seymour, who you're going to hear from at half time, actually, in the analysis seat. Here is David Silva. Ilkay Gundogan into Kevin De Bruyne. Can't tell you how much easier the player identification becomes for me when we're doing EPL. Here is De Bruyne in possession now. Looks to have a shot from quite a distance. The ball blocked by Guendouzi. It's come back to De Bruyne, the Belgian in possession here. Lays it off to Gundogan. Eddie Nketiah got a foot in.
You can see the lack of movement there from City in the final third. Normally there'd be players moving in and out of areas, dragging defensive players out and creating space. But everyone was just static. Everyone was flat, waiting for De Bruyne to make something happen.
And we often have been speaking from an Arsenal perspective about the fact that Granit Xhaka has almost been dropping into a kind of half left-back position at times. And we're seeing Dani Ceballos do that now. We just saw it there with Kieran Tierney bombing on that little bit further forward. So it's clearly part of Mikel Arteta's system rather than something that he does as an individual. So it's really interesting to see another player follow that same instruction. Eddie Nketiah will appeal for a foul there. Referee waves it away. Aubameyang putting pressure on Kyle Walker and he hooks it clear eventually.
I think these little things that we've seen from Arteta are all really interesting. The inversion of the right back, playing more centrally to add control. The central midfielder dropping to left back. Obviously, that's a function that we saw when Saka was playing the left back as a winger, converted to a left back. Obviously, wants to get forward more, so they're just looking for that defensive solidity. And the same thing with the centre backs, who are allowed more time on possession. They're almost encouraged to engage the press, to force the opposition player to press them and then move the ball. Everything just seems to have a little bit more intent behind it under Arteta.
Certainly does. Just seeing that, well, it looked like a foul to me on Eddie Nketiah. Certainly had two arms on him, Eric Garcia, and a tug of the shirt as well.
I think that's an old-fashioned challenge from an 19-year-old centre back, I think.
Yeah, I think that Eddie Nketiah had a case there, but I would say that. Don't forget, guys, you can get your questions in via the live chat feature, and we'll come to those at half time. Here's Bukayo Saka, but Aymeric Laporte gets a foot in, prevents the winger from receiving the ball. Here's David Silva driving forward for Manchester City. He's got Sterling on the outside of him, uses him. Sterling inside the box now, fires towards goal. Good save from Bernd Leno. Parries it to his left and it's gone out for a Manchester City corner. A sighter there for Raheem Sterling. Just a sign of what he can do if you allow him the time to get into the box and shift the ball onto his favoured right foot.
He's so dangerous even in those areas because he can come inside or go outside equally well. So as a fullback, you really have to be balanced at all times and be ready to move either way.
It's Riyad Mahrez who's going to take the corner. Kevin De Bruyne is gone in case he wants to play it short. De Bruyne walking away now though. Mahrez does play it short, but to Kyle Walker instead. City maybe look to change the angle here. It's back with Mahrez. Can he get the ball into the box? Bukayo Saka's done well to prevent the cross coming in. Here's De Bruyne. How frustrating must that be as a centre-back? You go all those yards forward and the ball doesn't even come in the penalty area as David Silva finds Gabriel Jesus. He's got it back. He's got Mendy on the outside. Will he use him instead? He plays it inside to Silva. It's a good effort and another good stop from Bernd Leno.
That was much better from Man City there, moving the ball better, waiting for the angles and looking to penetrate into the penalty area. Very good save from Leno.
Brilliant save from the German. Good work from Manchester City to fashion the opportunity, though. Just signs that they're starting to up the tempo a little bit. Here's Riyad Mahrez again. He's got 2 for company this time. He lays it off to Kevin De Bruyne and he's forced all the way back. Opportunity for Arsenal to get a little bit further up the pitch. Here's Garcia to De Bruyne, who's appeared on this right-hand side. So fluid in terms of his positioning, isn't he, Kevin De Bruyne? He's got that license to go anywhere.
Hugely. And that's an important part of the City system. They have one midfielder, the 6 who sits, so it's Gundogan in this match. But Silva and De Bruyne can really be anywhere. Silva tends to isolate himself more in the half space these days, but De Bruyne could be anywhere in this right side of the pitch at any given time.
Here is De Bruyne. Now to Raheem Sterling. Back to De Bruyne. Looks to help it on to Gundogan, but Arsenal win possession back. Can they spring a counter-attack here? Here's Kieran Tierney. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's on his bike, but would have just strayed offside there as Tierney looks to switch the play towards Saka, but there's Laporte again.
The opportunity was missed there. The pass should have been played quicker. Aubameyang was through. The pass just has to come that little bit quicker from the man in possession. He needs to look up and have the awareness to find that run.
Here is İlkay Gundogan.
Like we're starting to see City now really start to dominate possession. I'd expect to see them push up further and further. Arsenal are going to have to be careful they don't get pinned back and keep looking for those runs with their pace over the top.
Here is David Silva under pressure from Bellerin, but he escapes the right back's attentions. Here's Raheem Sterling now, plays it inside. David Silva manages to somehow dance his way through. David Silva lays it off to De Bruyne on the edge of the box. Lovely ball into Riyad Mahrez and another good stop from Bernd Leno. Manchester City are starting to click into gear here. Arsenal are coming under a lot of pressure now.
I thought the weight of that pass of De Bruyne was off there. I didn't think Mahrez was going to get it, and that potentially allowed a little bit, but certainly they created from City, move the ball much better now, and this is what we associate from this Manchester City team. This is what we're used to. These runs off the ball, these quick passes and angles that you don't expect to see. That's what makes them so dangerous in these areas.
Kieran Tierney gets ahead to that and concedes a throw-in. Lee, you've got a strong knowledge of Scottish football. For those who haven't seen a great deal of Kieran Tierney, because in truth, as Arsenal fans, we haven't, due to the injury problems. He's been really, really unlucky since he joined the club. But what has he got to offer, and are you confident that he will develop into the player that I guess people are hoping he'll be?
Absolutely. I think that there's still a debate in Scottish football as to whether Kieran Tierney or Andrew Robertson are the better left back. And given how successful Robertson has been for Liverpool, that tells you about how highly rated he is. At Celtic, obviously, he was used to winning, used to playing a team who would dominate the game, and he'd have to make use of his attacking ability as much as defensive. But you won't find a more dogged defensive player. He's determined. He never shirks a tackle. At one point, I remember he played a cup final against my team, Aberdeen, and he actually left the field injured and had to go to hospital. But he still made it back to the stadium in time, still in his kit afterwards for the trophy presentation.
Manchester City going really, really close there through Raheem Sterling. Just while Lee was giving us the download on Kieran Tierney. Always great to hear a bit of insight as Kevin, we just see the replay. De Bruyne slipped Raheem Sterling in that half space. It's a real opportunity. He's looked to chip it over Bernd Leno. Perhaps he's tried to be a little too cute there, Raheem Sterling.
And that's the first time in a little while we've seen Sterling move over to this side of the pitch. They're starting to be little bit more fluid. They're starting to look for the creases in the Arsenal defence, try to find ways to play through. Once Sterling starts to move like that, the overloads that can occur through the movements of Jesus as the centre forward and De Bruyne in the right half space are extremely dangerous. And that pass just shows you how easy it can be to break through a defensive line. Going back to Kieran Tierney, though, he's just as good going forward. He's a very technical player. He'll get forward, he can cross the ball very well, and he's also controlled in his passing. So I think Arsenal fans should expect to see a lot more from him as he settles back in after his injury layoff.
We did get a glimpse of that in some of the Europa League games and League Cup games that he played earlier in the season, that he's got a great ability to cross and pick people out, and he linked up particularly well with Gabriel Martinelli in a lot of those fixtures. So definitely been signs of it. We've definitely seen glimpses, but as I said, he's been really unfortunate with injuries, and it's going to take a bit of time, I'm sure, for him to get up to full speed. Dani Ceballos in the walls again, just catching another stray boot there from a Manchester City player. Arsenal back in possession now with David Luiz.
But again, no pressure from City in these areas. They're attracting the ball towards them, trying to make Arsenal go long. They're obviously worried about Arsenal being able to play into the midfield and progress the ball from there. They're trying to deny them that space. And it's been effective.
It has, because it's clear that Arsenal are struggling to transition the ball into the middle of the park. Here is Saka. Seeing that David Silva effort again. Done everything right, David Silva. He kept it low. He went across the goalkeeper. Bernd Leno was equal to it.
David Silva's never been a great goal scorer, but that's probably one of the only knocks you can really have on him as a player in the Premier League. One of the all-time greats in the Premier League for me, and he's a player who's going to be missed, I think, from Manchester City if, as expected, he does move on at the end of this contract.
Here's Eric Garcia, plays it into Kevin De Bruyne. Now Aymeric Laporte. David Silva just dropping that little bit deeper to receive the ball. Ilkay Gundogan almost operating as a third centre-back at times, just dropping into that hole so that the centre-backs can spread apart. Kyle Walker penalised there for a foul on Kieran Tierney. Not pleased with the decision. We're just seeing the replay. Looks a little bit soft to me, but
yeah, just showed him his back a little bit to try and move him off the ball. Tierney went down a little bit hard, but obviously bought the free kick.
Perhaps an opportunity for Arsenal to get the ball in the penalty area. Dani Ceballos and Bukayo Saka both standing over the free kick. Ceballos steps over the ball. Saka delivers towards that far post. In comes Shkodran Mustafi. Just couldn't make contact with the ball. But Mustafi's often very dangerous in the penalty area for all his defensive faults. He does get on the end of set pieces very often, Shkodran Mustafi.
Yeah, he's got a really good timing in the run. That's the main thing. I mean, the ability for players in these positions, it's more about anticipation than anything else. It's something that you can't really teach for defenders to be able to get on the end of their set plays. They've got to understand the flight of the ball and be able to time their runs well.
Raheem Sterling just easing Hector Bellerin off the ball there, and Manchester City will come forward with it. David Silva forced to check back. Benjamin Mendy lays it off for Laporte. Not sure if it was entirely intentional, but there you go again. Doozy goes down under the challenge of Gundogan. A clear push there from the Manchester City man. Arsenal look to take it quick and release Aubameyang, but the referees, I think, pulled it back. Here is Shkodran Mustafi. David Luiz once more. It's clear, isn't it? As soon as Arsenal try to move it into the midfield, the pressure starts being applied by Manchester City. But in this area, they're absolutely fine to have the ball.
Yep. And it's very deliberate, and we're seeing time and time again that Arsenal are trying to go a little bit longer, and that it's playing into the hands of Man City. They're obviously anticipating that longer pass. We saw just earlier on that movement, Ceballos moving from the left back position where he was positioned. He came into the half space and then got the ball from the defender, but just gave it straight back. So obviously that there's no easy connections for Arsenal in those areas, and that's why City are able to press up and try and win the ball in transition.
Here is Eric Garcia on the halfway line for Manchester City. To Gabriel Jesus, back to goal, looks to turn. Shkodran Mustafi came in behind a little bit too strongly, according to the referee.
We've hardly seen Jesus in this half. I think he struggled to get into the game. He struggled to find those angles to receive the ball. That's something he'll have to pick up in the second half, or we're likely to see Aguero at some point.
Of course, Manchester City possess an array of attacking talent that they can call upon should they need to do so. Mahrez with a clever free kick towards Kyle Walker. There was Eddie Nketiah and he was alert to it. Three minutes of added time to be played at the end of this first half. Referee not happy with the free kick, and it'll be taken again as a result. Difficult angle this, isn't it? To get it into the penalty area. There's always that issue where, you know, you don't quite have the angle to try and pick someone out. De Bruyne, if anyone could do it, he can.
Yeah, quite. And in that angle, you have to really float the ball. You can't hit the hard, flat delivery that a lot of teams favour that catch defenders out. So it's easier to defend from those kind of crosses from that area.
Here is Kyle Walker on the ball now. In that inverted fullback role, at least momentarily, that Lee was talking about earlier on. David Luiz with a miscue once again. And there's Raheem Sterling, and Manchester City have the lead. And it's a David Luiz mistake. Arsenal will be furious, but there was Raheem Sterling to pounce on the error. David Luiz is at it again.
That was a huge error. You saw, as you say, Kyle Walker received the ball in that half space in the inverted pull-back position. We talked about the fact that De Bruyne can pull out to the wide area, looks for space, and his delivery is usually very good from that area. In this instance, though, David Luiz should have easily cut that out and cleared the ball. The run from Sterling and behind was more hopeful than anything else, but as soon as he had the time and space to collect possession, there was always going to be one outcome, and that's a good goal for Man City. An important goal from them just before half-time, and that completely changes the game state for both coaches going into their half-time talks.
Manchester City take the lead right on the stroke of half-time. Mikel Arteta will be bitterly disappointed at the nature of that goal, though. And you're absolutely right. It's an excellent finish from Raheem Sterling. He makes no mistake in front of goal. But you simply cannot make errors like that at a place like the Etihad.
No, and even more frustrating, I think, for Arteta that David Luiz wasn't even on the pitch at the start of the game. It's only on because Mari picked up an injury. Not to say that Mari wouldn't have made that slip, but you can't say for sure. And that'll be something that is certainly going through the Arsenal coach's mind at this time.
Here's Aymeric Laporte from Man City. Go ahead, mate.
We talked about the flexibility that Manchester City have with De Bruyne and Walker, these players that would play in different positional slots. And that's why it's so difficult to mark them and pick them up and defend against them for the whole game. Because at any given moment, they could pop up at any part of the pitch and then deliver that kind of quality from wide areas. That makes it extremely difficult to defend.
Here's Guendouzi. He's been penalised. Can see the disappointment on Mikel Arteta's face.
Understandably, I mean, we both mentioned the fact that it looked as though City were starting to dominate the ball, but still to concede a goal like that will be heartbreaking at that point.
Absolutely. The half-time whistle's gone here at the Etihad. It's Manchester City 1, Arsenal 0, Raheem Sterling with the only goal of the game so far after a David Luiz error. Of course, David Luiz didn't start the game. He had to replace the injured Pablo Mari, as Ceballos had to replace the injured Granit Xhaka. A couple of casualties for the Gunners, and they've conceded a goal right on the stroke of half-time. Plenty for Mikel Arteta to think about. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a couple of moments' time, and we'll be joined by a couple of guests to get their take on the first 45 minutes. Good evening and welcome back to Total Football Analysis's live coverage of the Premier League. It's Manchester City versus Arsenal this evening. The hosts currently lead the Gunners by a 1-0. Raheem Sterling with the goal right on the stroke of half-time after a David Luiz mistake. We're joined by two wonderful guests. I'm joined by David Seymour from Total Football Analysis and football journalist and Manchester City fan, James Thompson. James, I'm going to start with you, mate. What have you made of Manchester City's first half performance? Is it as you expected, a little bit rusty, but the quality shining through in the end?
Yeah, I'd say you're a bit spot on there. First sort of 20 minutes or so started off a bit rusty with, both teams, I'd say, getting for the feel of the game. And then two of Arsenal's injuries, so breaking the play up a bit. But around the half-hour mark, City started to get into the stride a bit. They started pushing forward, getting the possession around the midfield, and that's when Bernd Leno sort of turned up with his star save that sort of saved Arsenal, really, just for Sterling to capitulate on David Luiz's mistakes for the goal, really. So not too bad. I'm expecting a decent second half, though, but all good so far for City.
Indeed, City will be the more pleased of the two sides, of course, given the scoreline. David, what have you made of that first half from a tactical perspective? Have you been? Lee's been saying in the commentary that he's been surprised by City's approach in terms of allowing Arsenal to have the ball at the back the way they have. What have you made of the way that the two teams have set up, and how have you enjoyed the game?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Lee, and I think that it's been interesting to see City do that whilst keep a very vertically compact shape. We're seeing very little space between the midfield and the front line, but a fair bit of space between the midfield and the defence. And Arsenal's just struggling to get the ball into that area. I mean, if they can find a way, then perhaps they'll start opening City up. I've been disappointed to see Bukayo Saka used on the right wing of that front three, and I'm not overly sure as to whether he'll continue there in the second half. I think that he's being used to stretch that City backline, and he's being shown so often onto his right foot, and you'd be expecting him to be wanting at least to be operating in the half space, being able to cut inside onto his left.
Yeah, I mean, one of the impressive things about Bukayo Saka has been his ability to bomb up and down that left-hand side. And when the team was announced an hour before kickoff, I think that the general mood on Arsenal Twitter, as I call it, was that everybody was excited to see Saka and Tierney combine on that flank. So we've been a little bit disappointed to see that Tierney and Saka aren't playing on the same side. Aubameyang has shown that he can play from the right in the past. So, myself and Lee were discussing it previously as well, and we were surprised to see that. Lee, I mean, what do Arsenal need to change to get themselves back in this game? Is it just simply a case of upping the intensity, or would you like to see them make some tactical tweaks?
I think David touched upon it there. They need to find a way to access that space that City are leaving them between City's defensive line and midfield. When Arsenal are in possession, they're obviously looking to play into the midfield. That's why their build-up's so slow, and that's why Man City are sitting off them and allowing them space. Pep Guardiola has obviously judged the fact that Arsenal would look to play into the midfield and then progress from there, and they've stuck to that throughout the first half. They need to find a way to be direct but be accurate with those passes from the defence. They can't just launch the ball over the top all the time. It might be successful once, maybe twice. You might get onto the ball, but it's very difficult. They need to access those spaces to turn the rest of the City block back, and then to be able to access and play in those platforms in the middle.
James, looking slightly further ahead, let's talk about Manchester City. Of course, they have this European ban potentially looming over their heads. But is the focus now this season about getting everybody back to fitness now with a view to going and pushing on and trying to win the Champions League? Do you think Pep Guardiola's got a bit of an advantage in that he's not under pressure necessarily to get the results? It's now about fitness because the title's gone, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say he would be looking at squad fitness and the sort of fitness of individual players. I think, for example, today with Eric Garcia and Laporte starting with each other, I think that's what Pep has an eye on for the future, because I don't think he's got that much confidence in Otamendi. I know he's a fan of Stones, but he's shown he's not, that consistent throughout the season. So I think that's a part of thing that they will be looking for, especially for the future.
Indeed. David, I mean, is there a way back into this game for Arsenal? Are you hopeful that they can put some pressure on Manchester City and cause some threat? Because, I mean, they've been pretty lackluster in that final third, and we expected them not to have much of the ball this evening, but I expected them to have a little bit more cutting edge when they did get forward, and we've just not seen that yet.
Yeah, we're seeing a complete lack of penetration from central areas. I think you're going to start seeing Aubameyang and Bukayo Saka doing what Mahrez and Raheem Sterling are doing for City, where they're dropping in slightly deeper to receive the ball, to get on possession, making runs from deeper areas. At the moment, it's a little one-dimensional. It's a little bit too easy for City to defend. And I just think there's that lack of sharpness, which is perhaps to be expected. But I would expect Saka and Aubameyang, if they come out in the second half, to be looking to get on the ball in deeper areas, and we'll see if Arsenal can do something if they can get those players in possession quicker.
And they do have options from the substitutes bench as well. Of course, I know they've been forced into making 2 subs already, but given the new rules and we are allowed to do 5 in the games now, he has got Alexander Lacazette there. He has got Nicolas Pepe there as well, who you would hope could influence the game if introduced. So there are options for Arsenal, but it feels like they're just going to... I mean, Lee, I don't know if you agree, but it feels like whatever Arsenal do, they're not defensively sound enough to contain this Manchester City side. And we've seen them start to cut opportunities open and start to create things, and eventually they got their breakthrough.
Yeah, this is the problem teams have when they go a goal down to City. To begin with, they can sit in a deep block and try to defend and try to deny City space in the final third. But as soon as City actually score a goal and go in front, they become an entirely different animal to defend against. If Arsenal do get a little bit too gung-ho and do start to look to get that goal, as they have to, then they leave spaces centrally and out wide that City will look to exploit very quickly. We've already seen that with De Bruyne pulling out to the right-hand side to provide the assist for that goal. That's if you're not giving David Luiz the assist, of course. And going forward, you might see that more and more as the game goes on. These kind of spaces where Silva or De Bruyne can pick up the ball and pick the passes that penetrate through the defensive line of Arsenal, that's where the danger comes. And you're right, Arsenal have got players on the bench that can make a difference, but the problem's going to be making sure that they get serviced, those attacking players that do come on.
Absolutely. My huge thanks to David and James for jumping on to give their thoughts during the halftime break. David, let's start with yourself. How can people follow you on social media and keep up to date with the excellent work that you do?
Oh, yeah. Follow me at David Symeou_. Otherwise, I'm on the EPL podcast and the Bundesliga podcast that we have. Any other podcasts? Oh, the Analysis Interview podcast. Just podcasts. Total Football Analysis podcast as well. So, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. And don't forget, guys, you can subscribe to the Total Football Analysis magazine, which is now weekly. And to think, when I joined, a month and a half ago, it was monthly. Then it was 2 weekly. Now it's monthly. So weekly. Sorry, confusing myself. There you go. So do head over to totalfootballanalysis.com, sign up, and you get 3 pieces of content for free per month as well. James, thank you so much for joining us, mate. How can people give you a follow and keep up to date with your excellent work?
Oh, cheers, mate. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. That's where I do most of my social media business. So that's at James16Thompson.
Brilliant. Do give these 2 guys a follow. My thanks very much to the pair of them for joining us at halftime as we prepare now for the second half to kick off. Hope to speak to you both very, very soon, and take care of yourselves.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy the second half.
Cheers, guys.
We will try. I can't guarantee that, though, given the way the scoreline is at the moment. It's Manchester City 1, Arsenal 0. Raheem Sterling's goal being the difference between the 2 sides at the moment. You could just see, we've just seen it on our screens, Mikel Arteta's reaction to David Luiz's error there. You could see it on David Luiz's face as well. He knows exactly what he's done, and perhaps that additional year contract offer, it may have just been pulled off of the table. Who knows? Of course, we'll be bringing you Tottenham versus Manchester United on Friday night as well. Jack Cunningham and Dave Seymour, who you just heard there, will be on commentary for that one. Don't forget to subscribe to the Total Football Analysis YouTube channel if you're watching us there. Or if you're on the Chronicles of Aguna channel, you can do the same. We're almost ready for the second half. You can see the Arsenal substitutes warming up at the moment. We've not had any confirmation of any changes as of yet. But the Gunners do have options, as do Manchester City. The likes of Aguero, Sane, Pepe, Lacazette, Martinelli, they're all on the substitutes bench. And fingers crossed, from my perspective anyway, we can see some of those players come on and impact the game. Lee, I mean, how do you expect the second half to go? More of the same, Manchester City dominant in possession, Arsenal hoping to nick something on the break maybe?
I think it's difficult to say for sure. I think that Arteta's a coach who obviously has a set style of play in mind. That's why we've seen Arsenal continually look to play the way they have done in terms of their build-up play and looking for those passes in midfield that just haven't been available. I think it'll be interesting to see whether he does change things from a concept standpoint and looks to play a little bit more direct, perhaps in the wide areas into the wings, where the pace of Arsenal could be the difference in terms of unlocking the Manchester City defence. But certainly, I don't expect Arsenal to sit back and try to defend and allow City to dominate the ball quite so much. They have to get forward, they have to press, and that'll be the interesting change to the game state of the match.
Indeed, and we're just seeing the virtual fans on our screens now as well. It's another touch that the Premier League have added to try and enhance the experience for those who, of course, aren't allowed to attend football matches at the moment due to everything that's going on. But we are glad to have football back in some form, at least, as Manchester City get us back underway here at the Etihad, shooting from right to left as you watch on your television screens now. Don't forget, if you're watching us via YouTube, you can join us on the Hot Mic app using the promo code TFA2020. You'll be able to sync our commentary with your television pictures. If you've got any questions, do leave them in the chat and we'll come to as many of those as we possibly can between now and the end of the broadcast. If you're new to the app, give Total Football Analysis a follow. That way you'll get a notification every time we go live. We've got plenty of games coming your way. So do give us a follow on Twitter as well to stay informed. Here is Aymeric Laporte in possession for Manchester City. Arsenal's system looks pretty much as you were. Dani Ceballos pushing that a little bit further forward there, applying some pressure to the goalkeeper. Perhaps we're going to see a slightly more aggressive press from the Gunners in this second half.
I think it's something they need to do. Otherwise, City will be content to play the ball around at the back like that and in the midfield. They're very good at resting in possession and looking to pull the opposition out towards them. As we said, though, that leaves spaces that City can look to exploit in transition.
Here's Kevin De Bruyne. See Eddie Nketiah working back there to put him under pressure. Eric Garcia now for the hosts. Ederson goes long. Direct ball over the top for Jesus. Took a touch. Apologies, it was Mahrez there who drifted in from that right-hand side.
What a pass that was from the goalkeeper. Ederson has that capability, the ability to reach any point of the pitch with his vision, his passing range. And you saw it there. City were a little bit slow in build up. They were under pressure and the ball went back to the goalkeeper and Ederson simply took a touch and then played a long diagonal pass, and that's the danger that he gives City. He's not only a player who's comfortable in tight areas and possession as a goalkeeper, but he can play progressively in that way.
Pep Guardiola was very specific about wanting a goalkeeper with that ability, wasn't he?
Yep,
when he came to Manchester City, he pushed Joe Hart out the door almost immediately. Eddie Nketiah wins it back from Laporte there, who's been caught further up the field than he would have liked. Here's Bukayo Saka on this right-hand side, driving at Benjamin Mendy. Ball in behind for Joe Willock, who joined him in the attack, but Mendy picks up the loose ball and clears it. You see Bukayo Saka doesn't look anywhere near as comfortable. It was a great point from David at half-time when he's playing on that right-hand side. Here's Kevin De Bruyne. Looks to shoot towards goal. Tierney got a foot in. Ball's broken to Mahrez anyway. Here's Gundogan in possession now. Under pressure from Willock, but he finds Mendy anyway. Mendy back to Eric Garcia.
And talking about Saka on the left-hand side, and you're right, David made a great point that City are continually pushing him out to his right foot, trying to negate his threat and cutting inside. We saw it there. Laporte was recovering his position and he took up an area position just behind the play to prevent that cutback option for Saka, and Saka was eventually crowded out. So City are obviously very aware of the weaknesses in Saka's game. He's very left-footed and wants to be able to cut inside on that left foot. I think there might be a chance further on in the second half that we'll either see Saka taken off the pitch completely or we'll see him switched over to the other side where he's more comfortable.
Here's Riyad Mahrez getting in behind David Luiz, who's pulled him back, and the referee has pointed to the spot. Arsenal have conceded a penalty, and it's David Luiz who's at fault.
That's just another example of calamitous defending. Very difficult in that area once you've been rolled by the striker and the striker has penetrated the penalty area, but still to pull the player back like that, you know you're going to give away the penalty. Sometimes you have to wonder, really, is it worth it in that area?
Certainly had an arm on the shoulder. I've seen worse, but once he gets the wrong side of you, if you've got your arms on the player, you're always likely to concede a penalty. It's terrible decision-making from David Luiz once again. He's been sent off as well. Arsenal are down to 10 men. It's a nightmare start to the second half. And Mikel Arteta will be absolutely furious with David Luiz. He's come on. He's conceded the first goal. Cost them, I should say, the first goal with a stupid error. And now he may have cost them the game.
And so apparently there's not a double jeopardy rule. I thought there was a ruling in place that if a player conceded a penalty, he wouldn't be sent off for the same offence, but it's happened this time.
I thought that too, but there was some slight tweak made to that rule, if I'm not mistaken. De Bruyne tucks it away, bottom corner, Bernd Leno goes the wrong way, and Manchester City have doubled their lead just 5 minutes into the second half. It's City 2, Arsenal 0. David Luiz dismissed.
No doubt from the penalty kick there, De Bruyne very calmly stepped up and just waited for the goalkeeper to move slightly before putting the ball the opposite way. Players with great technique like De Bruyne are always dangerous from penalties and from free kicks. But you're seeing here on our TV now, you're seeing the pictures as Mahrez rolled. Luiz, a great touch on the chest to get into the penalty area, and Luiz just reaching round on his shoulder, and that was enough to put Mahrez to ground.
Pure stupidity from David Luiz.
And now Arsenal have to find a way to reshuffle to fill that hole and still find a way to try to get back into this game.
Staffy goes down there. Looks in discomfort, and Arsenal can't afford to lose another player to injury. Raheem Sterling came sliding in there. We just see the replay once more. I think it's a foul, but nothing more, if I'm honest.
No. I think that it was more the way that the player went down and hit the ground after the challenge that's caused the discomfort. It'll be interesting to see exactly how Arsenal try to reshuffle now. Kieran Tierney has played centre-back before in his career. Possibly he could slot into that area and move Saka back to left-back.
Sounds like a sensible choice. It'll be interesting to see whether that is the route that Mikel Arteta goes down. Just seeing that pass from Ederson again. I mean, that's an unbelievable pass. You'd applaud your centre midfielder for making a pass like that, let alone your goalkeeper.
I think that's what you would term a quarterback pass from that area, the ability to find all areas of the pitch like that. And you see how simple it is for him to just play those passes in those areas.
I mean, the more I see the red card from David Luiz, the more I think it's slightly harsh. Is that just me being a little bit, I've got sort of my Arsenal hat on when I'm saying that, but it feels like, he has impeded the player, but the red card as well.
Yeah, I think that's the point for me. To give the penalties one thing, but to send the player off at the same time, I think was maybe a little bit far. Especially, I don't believe that Luiz was already on a booking. I think that was a straight red card. Obviously, Mahrez was through on goal, so I think the decision to award the penalty was correct, but I don't think I would have gone as far as to send him off the field.
See Shkodran Mustafi back on his feet. And I mean, I'm not a fan of necessarily of managers throwing their players under the bus, but I'd like to see Mikel Arteta in the post-match interview, in the post-mortem, be honest about, when his players have made errors like that and apply some pressure on them, because I feel like in previous years that's not been the case at Arsenal, particularly under Arsene Wenger, where he would just take the crap for everybody, and it would be nice to see a manager, hold his player accountable, and I think the fans will have more sympathy for him that way as well.
I think so, but I think at the same time, a lot of coaches will say one thing in public and another thing in private, and they might defend their players and stick up for their players in front of the press, and then it'll be a different story in the dressing room when this game is pulled apart by the analysts afterwards. I think that there's no doubt that Arteta will be fully aware that Luiz has cost his team two goals there and now a man down. It looks as though that we were correct with the fact that Saka would drop to left back and Tierney would play in the centre. But it also looks as though Arsenal may be switching to something of a back three.
With Mustafi just tucking in. But then Bellerin the right back. I don't know how that would work necessarily.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on it over the next few minutes. And
I think it's likely we'll see City have the ball quite a lot, so the defensive shape for Arsenal should be quite noticeable. But Tierney's certainly playing centrally there.
He is indeed. It looks as though it's gone to sort of a 4-4-1 with Eddie Nketiah leading the line, Aubameyang on the left, Joe Willock just coming out to this right-hand side. Here's David Silva. Joe Willock wins it back for the Gunners. I totally get where you're coming from about the coach, saying one thing in public and one thing in private. I think you've got to find a balance rather than be a Jose Mourinho, for example, and come out and absolutely hammer the guy. I think it's okay to say, an individual error has cost us today. And that way you're being honest with the fans, their understanding of where you're coming from, but you don't have to completely destroy the player. Whereas Mourinho would go the polar opposite. So
he would.
I think there's a balance to be found in situations like that.
No, I think you're right. I think it would be good to see Arteta come out and address that afterwards. He's not somebody who we've really seen that much in the media so far. Obviously, he hasn't been at Arsenal for that long, and with the layoff as well. So he's still somebody I think we're getting used to in terms of his demeanour at press conferences.
Indeed, I've actually had the pleasure of being in a couple of them, and he's been very calm, very calculated. Even after the Olympiacos defeat in the Europa League, that was one of the ones I was at. And he came in the room and you could instantly feel the disappointment from him. And as somebody who follows the club and covers the club very closely, in a strange way, I really liked that. I liked seeing him like that because it reflected the mood and the feeling that the supporters had at that time. And that was nice to have that connection. It was a connection that Arsenal fans never had with Unai Emery. So it was nice to feel that. And I think, if he does lose his cool a little bit in the press from time to time, I don't think anybody will be holding that against him necessarily.
No, certainly. We've seen that from Guardiola in the past. He's had a history of being quite aggressive in his press conferences at the time, especially obviously when he was up against Jose Mourinho when he was at Real Madrid. There was a lot of animosity between the two, and that was a key part of his persona there. So certainly if Arteta has learned from Guardiola and is trying to model himself in his fellow Spaniard, we might see that.
Indeed. Here is Kevin De Bruyne for Manchester City now.
I think that we're going to have to see Arsenal make a change soon. I don't think Joe Willock on the right-hand side is going to provide the necessary threat going forward. It's likely we'll see Pepe or Lacazette, I would imagine.
Nicolas Pepe does tend to operate from the right-hand side when he does play, so it feels like the more natural solution, I guess.
What's your opinion being on Pepe this season?
It's been a strange one with Nicolas Pepe. I think when you come to a club like Arsenal for such a huge transfer fee, there was always going to be a lot of pressure on him to hit the ground running. I think we've seen glimpses and signs of what Nicolas Pepe can do, but I don't think we've seen it at a consistent level. The caveat to that is that he's joined the club at a really difficult time when, Unai Emery was starting to lose control. It was well documented as well that he wasn't Unai Emery's number one choice, which suggests that the club went over his head and just did what they wanted to anyway. So I think Mikel Arteta coming in will give him a fresh start. He's got a coach who hasn't already got a preconception about him, hasn't already gone out in the transfer market hoping to bring in someone else and ended up with him. So I think I'm going to start to judge Nicolas Pepe now. But if you're asking me if I've been excited by what I've seen so far, I have to say no. That's just sort of my honest take on it. Here's De Bruyne now on the right-hand side for City. Looks to find Riyad Mahrez, but Kieran Tierney, who has moved into the central defensive position now, got a toe in there. Here's Gabriel Jesus from the edge of the box. Fires it straight into the arms, though, of Bernd Leno. 58.5 minutes played. Manchester City 2, Arsenal 0. A couple of David Luiz errors contributing to the scoreline and handing Manchester City a pretty comfortable 2-goal lead at the moment.
It's a shame. I think the sending off just disjointed the match now a little bit, and that can happen. Sometimes you see teams have to pull into a different tactical shape, and it just changes the complexion completely. Coupled with the penalty and the fact that City went 2-0 up, I think Arsenal have got a real problem trying to get back in this game now. They need to find penetration quickly. They need to get a little bit more pace up front. They need to find those passes that'll get behind the City defensive line, if you like, to try and turn them and try and try and force City back a little bit instead of allowing City to camp in the central areas like this.
I'll make you right. Here is Raheem Sterling, ball round the corner for Riyad Mahrez. He can't quite get it under control. Aubameyang was back there. He's now with Ceballos. Now Guendouzi. Now Willock. Having to play on the right-hand side at the moment. Arsenal down to 10 men, of course. Ceballos into Aubameyang's feet. He looks to find Saka on that left-hand side, but pass was short. Here's De Bruyne controlling the game, dominating the game, driving forward for the host. He finds Sterling to his left. Sterling looks to put it back across goal, but he's completely miskicked that. Wrong-footed himself there, Raheem Sterling, and he's conceded a goal kick. Leroy Sané back on the bench for Manchester City. Of course, picked up an injury in the Community Shield final prior to the start of the season and hasn't played for the first team since. He's been a huge miss, hasn't he, Leroy Sané? Excellent player.
Massive, and he changes the complexion completely for City. As we see, Mahrez on the right-hand side tend to hug the line. Sané will do the same on the left-hand side. Whereas Sterling will move centrally, move it in the half spaces more from the left. Sané's more of a traditional winger, if you like. Still heavily linked to Bayern Munich in the summer. I'm not sure if that move is going to come off. I know that Sané was unhappy that Munich seemed to have cooled their interest a little bit. But if he does move on, it'll be a huge loss for City and a player that they will have to replace in the summer.
Yeah, you're right. He has been heavily linked with a move to Bayern Munich. Here is Gabriel Jesus. Ilkay Gundogan to Benjamin Mendy. Not gotten forward as much as he normally does this evening, Benjamin Mendy. Is that a deliberate thing? Has he been a little bit more conservative for a reason, in your opinion?
Potentially, it could just be the fact that they're a little bit more worried about Saka's pace on that side. So Mendy's been a little bit more back, if you like. He's retained a deeper position in order to negate that a little bit. We haven't seen the same from Walker on the other side. Walker's been more prone to getting forward, I think, than Mendy has. But Mendy's suffered so many injury problems that nobody's quite sure if he's still going to be the same athletic threat that he was when he signed from Monaco. At that point, he's one of the best left-backs in Europe with his ability to rampage forward and get balls into the penalty area almost at will. It'll be interesting to see whether he can get his consistent form back up again and maintain that fitness. I think that'll be the key thing going for the rest of the season.
Here's Ederson in possession now for Manchester City. You can just see the game slowed down, hasn't it? The intensity's dropped off, and Mikel Arteta made the point in the build-up to this game that you are going to see that happen with the lack of fans in the stadium. They're not there to drive the players on at times and urge them forward, and the game is very different in an empty stadium, I believe.
Massively, and I think we've seen that in the Bundesliga when they've obviously had quite a few match days now. Small sample size, but there has been a drop-off in terms of home teams winning matches compared to when fans are in the stadium. Yes, the stadium is the home, but it's the fans that really make the stadium on match days, and their ability, as you say, to drive the team forward, to almost control the tempo with their aggressive noises or their support of the team, if you like. I think that's the important thing, and that's something that we're obviously still going to be missing, and probably will be for most of the remainder of this year, I believe.
Do you think, though, that it serves an advantage as an advantage when you're trying to implement a style of play and when you're looking to build from the back? Because often a crowd can get nervous when you're trying to play out from the back, and without that, hold on a minute, as City put the ball low into the penalty area, Kyle Walker's cross gathered by Bernd Leno. Sorry to stop there, but what I was trying to say was, do you think that, you know, in Arsenal's case or even Manchester City's, when you want to play out from the back, it not having the fans sort of making those nervous noises and giving that nervous energy at times is kind of helpful as well?
I think we saw that a lot for Arsenal when Unai Emery was first in place, when he was trying to get them to play from the back, and there were a lot of mistakes being made. Leno came under a lot of criticism from the fans, I believe, with his perceived lack of ability to play with the ball at his feet. And you're right, fans can be, you can almost hear the audible groans when you give the ball away in those areas, and that's something that isn't there at the moment. So, yeah, you could possibly be correct there with the fact that teams are more comfortable, if you like, in being able to implement that kind of style.
Manchester City are going to make a couple of changes here. Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva are the two players who are going to come on. Riyad Mahrez is going to make way, as is David Silva, who passes on the captain's armband to Kevin De Bruyne. David Silva, of course, his contract comes to an end at the end of this current campaign. Lee, he can still do a job somewhere, can't he? Surely.
Absolutely. I think it's likely at this stage, though, he's either going to go back to Spain for his last contract or somewhere like the MLS. He's been a player who's been a great servant for Man City, obviously. He's been part of the team through a lot of transition, a lot of different moves. But we're seeing now the introduction of Phil Foden, who's a player that a lot of Manchester City fans hope can just step into that role when Silva leaves. Obviously, young, homegrown English, and an extremely talented young player in his own right.
What have you made of what you've seen of Phil Foden? Has he got the ability to step up eventually and take over from someone as cultured and as classy as David Silva?
There's absolutely no doubt that he's got the raw ability. He's one of the most talented players I think that England has produced in the last 2 decades. He's the player who's just got that natural ability with the ball at his feet that not many players have. I know Man City fans have been upset with Guardiola at times with the perceived lack of minutes that Foden's getting, but he's still a young player, and this is an elite team. Young players don't come into elite teams and play that kind of minutes all the time. So I think that Guardiola's doing the right thing. Foden's being taught, he's given great education in the training pitch, and when the time's right, his minutes will go up, and it could well be next season.
Here is Joe Willock for Arsenal now. Manchester City got plenty of players behind the ball. Aubameyang out on this left-hand side. Saka into Willock. Looks to put it towards that far post. Hector Bellerin not anywhere near it, but you don't expect him to be as a right back in that position. Arsenal readying a triple change, and they've already made 2 substitutions already. Of course, Granit Xhaka having to make way. And of course, Pablo Mari. It's going to be Eddie Nketiah making way.
That makes sense at this point. Straight swap with Lacazette.
Matteo Guendouzi also going off, as is Joe Willock. Going to be Lacazette, Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Reece Nelson coming on for the Gunners. Just confirmation there, Willock, Guendouzi and Nketiah, the trio making way.
All are likely to be like for like at this point. Nelson will play on the right-hand side. Maitland-Niles will slot into midfield. Obviously a very versatile player, and Lacazette will just lead the line for the last 20-odd minutes now. Arsenal really need to make something happen quickly.
And Ainsley Maitland-Niles has been quite vocal about the fact that he wants to play midfield. Of course, he's been used as a makeshift fullback for a long time at Arsenal. And I know that this game it feels as though it's fallen away for Arsenal. But this is an opportunity for him, isn't it, for the next 20 minutes or so to stake a claim for that position. Because when he has been given those chances, you could argue that he's not shown enough. And hence why he's never given a look in, despite having so much first-team experience in comparison to some of the players around him.
Yeah, I think arguably he's performed better playing from the right-back position than he has in the centre midfield. But you're right, he's been very vocal, saying that he considers himself to be a central midfielder. He thinks that's his best role, and he will have an opportunity to show that here. But he's a player with obvious talent.
I think what struck sort of the fan base when he first arrived on the scene, and if you remember back when he first broke onto the scene, it was as a left back when Arsenal were in desperate need for covering that position. And Arsene Wenger showed a great deal of faith in him. And what was impressive about him was his maturity and his composure in possession. He didn't panic. He looked like a player well beyond his years. But that composure has turned into a casualness at times, and that's been a real problem. Here's Sterling into De Bruyne, fires at goal. Bernd Leno manages to keep it out, and I hate to think what the score would have been had Bernd Leno not been on top of his game this evening.
Leno's been excellent. I think he's shown all his qualities. He's a goalkeeper who's very much a shot stopper in terms of profile. he's had criticism for his ability to use the ball with his feet previously, but he is actually quite good at that, and he's developing that side of his game. But in terms of ability just to be a presence in goal and to be in position to block shots, he is an excellent goalkeeper for this level.
Manchester City look as though they're going to make another change. Kevin De Bruyne moving towards the touchline. He's been sensational. Best player on the park for me so far.
Yes, and he usually is when he plays. That's the thing with him. He tends to be the best player on the pitch.
Fernandinho is coming on. As is Rodri. He'll be replacing Aymeric Laporte.
It's interesting. We've seen Fernandinho playing as a centre half for Manchester this season. Likely he'll go back into that area now in place of Laporte, and Rodri will play in the base of midfield with Gundogan pushing forward into an 8 role.
Here is Mendy. Bernardo Silva will take it down. Lays it off to Sterling. The pass seemed a little short, but Sterling still got there first. Sterling's made a run in behind here. Gundogan's picked him out. He's miscued it. Still got an opportunity to pick out a teammate. Here's Bernardo Silva. Forced back by Ceballos. His pass comes off the backside of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang there, but still finds one of his teammates. Here's Kyle Walker. I believe that pass was intended for Sterling, but Gundogan picked it up anyway. 70 minutes played here. Manchester City 2, Arsenal 0. Don't forget, if you're watching us via the Total Football Analysis YouTube channel or the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel, please do head over to the Hot Mic app, download it with the promo code TFA2020. Give us a follow, and that way you'll never miss a broadcast. Here's Kyle Walker, manages to keep it in. Ball falls to Gundogan in the penalty area. Dani Ceballos will come away with it now for Arsenal, though.
Interesting so far. We've seen Phil Foden playing out on the left-hand side for City with Bernardo Silva playing as the 8. I would have expected that to be the other way around. But these players are so flexible. Expect to see them switch places from time to time.
Got a comment, a couple of comments actually. The first one's from Harshal, and he put this in the first half. Apologies, I missed this, Harshal. He said at the time, did you notice that Arsenal were getting drawn to the ball on their right, City's left quite a lot, which is then opening up space down the right-hand side? Do you think this was planned? So I'm assuming from a Manchester City perspective, do we think it was planned to try and draw Arsenal onto the ball on their right? Quite possibly. Graham says, what a joy it must be to come on at 2-0 down and 10 men. I don't know how Aubameyang stayed on another anonymous game. I was just thinking actually just a moment ago, what must be going through Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's head when, he's been stuck out on the left-hand side. He's been extremely isolated this evening, not had much of the ball whatsoever. It's a frustrating night for the forward.
It is indeed, but he's not a player who would really come into deep areas to look for the ball. He likes to stay in that high areas where he can isolate against the defender and try and use his pace in transition. In games like this, where that's not really been possible, where Arsenal have really been under pressure for the majority of it, you would expect your players, your big players like that, to drop it in deeper areas to try and combine and try and create something going forward. We've not really seen that from Aubameyang, and I think that's just his player profile, if you like. He doesn't do those things. He likes to stay in positions where he can be dangerous when he does get a chance to get the ball. Just so happens it hasn't come off for him.
Just seeing that come up on your screens, Arsenal's away record against the Big Six, not a single win in the last 25. That's a terrible record. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah. It's something that needs to be addressed, and I'm sure they will be going into next season. Obviously, this has been a difficult first season for Mikel Arteta to come into the club. The club was also struggling under Unai Emery in the first instance, and then to have the break for the COVID-19 outbreak, only just getting back to football now. I think it'll be next season before we really see Arteta's team, if you like, and his game plan put into place.
Hopefully a major clear out as well of some of the dead wood, because there is a lot of it in this Arsenal squad. Just see De Bruyne's penalty again, expertly dispatched by the Belgian, but you've come to expect that level of quality from him as we see the players take their second half drinks break. Again, I'm not entirely sure that this is really necessary on a rainy night in Manchester, but there you go.
I assume this will be the same thing for every match going forward for the rest of the Premier League season. Now we'll see these drink breaks.
I mean, I don't
There
mind
might
it
be.
for the first few weeks while people get back into the swing of things, but it just feels a little bit unnecessary for me.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to what I said earlier, in La Liga, you completely understand it because they wouldn't be playing matches in the summer ordinarily there. And of course, the temperatures, particularly in the likes of Seville and various other places, can get really, really hot. So that is understandable. This feels a little bit, I guess, like they're just ticking a box to me.
Yeah, potentially. It'll be a health and safety thing.
Here's Fernandinho on the ball, and as Lee mentioned, he has played a huge chunk of the season at centre-back, often being preferred to those who naturally play in that position, which says a lot about how Pep Guardiola felt about the likes of Nicolas Otamendi and John Stones earlier on in the season. So
I think it's also a nod to how highly Pep Guardiola thinks of Fernandinho as a player and as an important part of the team. Obviously, signing Rodri for big money, he was always going to come in and play as a six more often. And Fernandinho has just had a new role almost created for him. But we've seen Guardiola take sixes, take central midfielders and move them to defence. Think about Javier Mascherano
yep,
at Barcelona. Yaya Toure, who obviously played as an attacking midfielder for Man City, played as a centre back for Barcelona as well. So it's something we've seen throughout Guardiola's career.
Mendy delivers into the box, headed away by Mustafi. Pep Guardiola requires his centre-backs to be very comfortable on the ball and be able to progress the ball. And I guess a midfielder is naturally conditioned to do that. So he's got half the qualities needed to play in that role already anyway.
Certainly has.
Here is Fernandinho. Gundogan just caught there by Kieran Tierney. The referee's going to reach for his pocket. Yellow card.
You see how high Fernandinho was there for Man City playing the ball. That this is a sign that Arsenal really need to get possession and start forcing City back. If the centre halves for City are allowed to move up into the centre of the opposition half like that, it really is dangerous in terms of creating overloads and passing angles.
Manchester City have a free kick. Quite a long way out. Looks a good 30, 35 yards from goal, by my estimations. There'll be someone in the comments who tells me that it's a few yards more or a few yards less, I'm sure. Sterling plays it short. Here's Ilkay Gundogan, another save from Bernd Leno, and it's put out for a corner by Ainsley Maitland-Niles.
Very clever free kick there from Raheem Sterling, but Arsenal should never have been caught out like that. You can see Gundogan moving off, just peeling wide to receive the ball, but no Arsenal player was close to him.
They've got to be alert to those sort of things. They've got to be more switched on in those situations. And, you know, the more I watch of this Arsenal team, and even under different management, under different coaches, we still see the same individual errors, the same issues, which suggests that, you know, it's the quality of player that Arsenal have at the moment, which just simply isn't good enough in those defensive areas. Here comes City once more. Phil Foden there, dispossessed. Aubameyang in the left back position. That's not where he wants to be. Here's Lacazette, turns inside. Pass for Ainsley Maitland-Niles was overhit, and Arsenal have gotten away with that as the game was pulled back from a foul, committed by, I think it was Rodri. You just see Rodri blocking off Ainsley Maitland-Niles in the replay of that.
Very clever little move from the Spaniard there. That's something, obviously, tactical fouls and little pieces like that to disrupt the opposition are very much a part of Pep Guardiola's game model. Something he comes under a lot of criticism for, but it's extremely effective at disrupting the other team.
It is indeed. And something that's not particularly noticeable at first glance, which allows you to get away with it often because we didn't notice it. Certainly saw it in the replay, though. Here's Ilkay Gundogan. Lacazette had worked back there, done pretty well. Rodri's going to pick up a yellow card. He's committed a few fouls now since he's been on the pitch.
Yep. those tactical fouls we were just talking about, that was another one. Just didn't let the player move past him, disrupted the transition straight away.
Dani Ceballos has been in the war since he's come on. No shortage of challenges on him. From the Manchester City midfield, Rodri picking up his 8th Premier League booking of the season. Sergio Aguero.
And this is just what the Arsenal defence will want to see now.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's all you need. 2-0 down, struggling, just waiting for the game to end. And now you've got to contend with Sergio Aguero. One of the Premier League's all-time greatest strikers, in my opinion. He's proven it time and time again, year after year. Continues to provide his team with important goals. Ederson just clashes with his own player there. The ball's fallen to Bukayo Saka. Put it wide anyway. Looks in some discomfort, the Manchester City man. Ederson coming out there with all his force behind him. Of course, it was accidental. Not the first time Ederson's been involved in this type of clash, though, is it? He's always involved in this type of thing.
The right thing to do for a goalkeeper to be the one to claim responsibility and clear your lines. It did look like a strong challenge, though, and the players seems to be in quite a lot of trouble at the moment. The players the Man City players at least, were very worried from the onset.
The medical staff almost dressed up as Ghostbusters. I'm not sure what those outfits are. Is it Eric Garcia that's down? I think it is.
Positionally, it would be Eric Garcia that was in that slot, but we haven't actually had a look at him yet on the TV screen.
Apologies if you can hear the rain beating down on my ceiling. It is absolutely pouring here in North London.
Yeah,
it is Eric
definitely
Garcia.
Eric Garcia. As I say, Ederson did the right thing to come out and clear the danger. It just so happened that he also took the defender out with him. Ederson's a unit of a man, and that kind of impact will knock anyone back. Don't think City will take any chances here. I think it's quite likely that we'll see Garcia taken off now.
There's no need to take any risks. 82nd minute. They're 2 goals to the good. Looking relatively comfortable as well. First of all, we just hope that Eric Garcia recovers from this, because he looks to be in some discomfort. I understand when it's a head injury that the medical staff have to take all the precautions, and it can take a little bit of time, but this looks quite serious.
It does.
Pep Guardiola taking the opportunity to provide Rodri with some further instruction.
A lot of people see these pictures of Guardiola doing things like this and think it's overkill, but I just see it as extreme attention to detail from a coach. He's taking any opportunity he can just to give a little bit more context and information to a player.
To be the best, you have to be obsessed. And Pep Guardiola certainly is.
And so's Arteta, by all accounts.
He certainly seems to be, based on what we've seen of him so far. And that's why he'll be extra frustrated by some of the individual errors that are costing his team points at the moment, because you can prepare for a game all week and you know, do this and that and work really, really hard on the training ground and on your strategy. And then an individual mistake can throw that all out the window, essentially. You can see the Manchester City players look very concerned about their teammate.
I think it's difficult for Arteta at the moment. I mean, you touched upon the fact that there are deficiencies in the squad, and squad build is an issue, and that's to do with the way that the club have been recruiting for the last 2 or 3 seasons, probably. And now he's got to come into a position where he has to really make affect real change, and a lot of that is down to attention to detail and having high standards, and we haven't seen that from Arsenal tonight. Certainly with the mistakes made by David Luiz, there was no sense of of high standards there. He's made 2 errors that were huge and glaring that have completely taken this game away from his team. And that's something that Arteta, as a coach or as a player, indeed, when he was still a player, don't forget he was a fantastic player in his day, he wouldn't have stood for those mistakes then either.
That's right. The medical staff still attending to Eric Garcia. Manchester City players with their heads in their hands. They look really worried.
They do.
Nice to see Lacazette and Mendy covering their faces whilst having a discussion following the Premier League's protocols.
This could just be, I don't know if this is a series that looks or it's just concussion protocol.
"85 minutes gone here at the Etihad, but we're expecting a substantial amount of injury time to be added on."
Yeah. And no sign yet if he's going to come on to replace Garcia, who is being fully immobilised by the looks of things on the stretcher there.
Looks as though he might be on oxygen there. See some of the players trying to keep warm at the moment. Understandably so. It's been a pretty lengthy delay, one that is absolutely necessary looking at the position that Eric Garcia finds himself in at the moment. Even his teammates on the bench are looking on with some visible concern.
I think it's always difficult when a player goes down in this way. You're never entirely sure exactly how serious it is. As I say, there are protocols in place for concussion that could lead to this kind of treatment as well. Entirely possible that he gets back to change in the dressing room and he manages to pick up again. But it certainly looks very serious at the moment. And Man City, understandably, taking no risk. Their medical staff are working hard to make sure that Garcia is looked after, and that's exactly what we'd expect to see. A shame for Garcia for a young player to come into this Man City team after the lockdown period. Obviously, would have been hoping to get an extended run in the side, and this might be an injury that knocks him back a little bit in that development.
Go to some of your comments while we have the pause in play. Graham says, some good performances tonight. Leno, Bellerin, Tierney, Mustafi, Ceballos, Guendouzi. But Aubameyang, Saka and Ketia, not worth a light between them. He also goes on to say, in regards to Edison, he says, the goalie's a muppet, Harry. It's a red card tackle on his own player. I've got to be honest, Graham, I need to see it again. But, you know, as a goalkeeper, you're very often taught, aren't you, to take it all. And I think that's probably what Edison's done there. And I mentioned that he's been involved in clashes before. He's been on the receiving end of some as well. You know, for being brave and putting his head in there. I remember the one with was it Sadio Mane a few years back, which looked really, really painful for the goalkeeper. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those unfortunate accidents, and Eric Garcia looks in some significant discomfort.
It's difficult for the goalkeeper because if he doesn't make that movement to come out and clear the ball, and then Arsenal were able to get in front of the defender and score there, then he gets criticised for that. So he's caught in two minds, if you like. Either you come out and clear everything, or you stay in your line and take your chances.
He's going to resume with Arsenal in possession. We're on the 88th minute now, but as I said, we expect a substantial amount of time to be added on. Here's Mustafi in possession. Plays it forward. Straight into Gundogan though, but Hector Bellerin will pick up the loose ball. Here's Reiss Nelson for the Gunners.
And of course, City have already made their 5 changes, so this is now 10 against 10 with Garcia going off.
Yeah, great point. See the referee with his mask on and his microphone over the mask. Strange sight, something I don't think I'll ever get used to. But it's something we're going to have to get used to quickly, because it is a sign of the times at the moment.
Certainly is.
As Manchester City have a free kick just inside the Arsenal half. Benjamin Mendy will take it. It's back to Fernandinho. Looks like Rodri has just dropped in at centre-back alongside him. For this last few minutes, we're into the 89th minute, just awaiting the board to know how long has been added on as a result of Eric Garcia's injury. Of course, we wish him all the best and a speedy recovery. Looks a really promising talent. Somebody who's got a big future ahead of him. Here's Dani Ceballos now. Hector Bellerin on this right-hand side for the visitors. Raheem Sterling and Kevin De Bruyne, the goal scorers. 11 minutes added on to the end of this one.
All time then if Arsenal can get a goal quickly.
There is still time, but at this point it just feels like torture league. Mikel Arteta watches on. He'll be bitterly disappointed. His side have conceded 2 extremely soft goals. David Luiz at fault for both of them. And then he was dismissed, adding to Mikel Arteta's problems this evening. Here is Sergio Aguero coming forward for Manchester City. Now Raheem Sterling looks for Aguero. Aguero takes a touch. Aguero slots it past Leno, who got a foot to it. It cannoned off the post, and there was Phil Foden to turn it in. It's Manchester City 3, Arsenal 0, and that is how devastating Manchester City can be on the break.
And that's the game. You're right, completely correct in the fact that in transition City are so dangerous. I thought that Aguero was going to get his goal there. He's obviously not going to be happy. He was left out of the starting lineup. He's a player who demands to be in the starting lineup every single game and is known to have a chip on his shoulder if he doesn't get that. So quite likely be trying to get a goal here. It's good movement from Sterling to pull outside, and then a quick pass back in, caught Arsenal out. Normally you'd see Aguero finish. It was a good save from Leno. Unfortunately, Foden was following up like that. Good finish on the left foot from the young Englishman.
It's a goal that will please many Manchester City fans. They love to see Phil Foden doing well, and he's got himself on the score sheet here in the Premier League, staking his claim for the place of David Silva when he does eventually move on. It's only strengthened his case there by adding to his goal tally.
Certainly has, and there are other players in the City system who are coming through behind Phil Foden as well. They've got a rich youth system at the moment. One in particular to keep an eye out for is Tommy Doyle, another homegrown player from the Manchester area who looks extremely promising, playing in the same 8 role as Foden does.
Here is Bukayo Saka into Lacazette. Looks to play it inside to Maitland-Niles, but Phil Foden's back there and he picks up the loose ball, and Manchester City are in possession now with Bernardo Silva. Here's Foden. Back to Rodri, under pressure from Aubameyang, but does well there. City work the ball up the field. Back with Benjamin Mendy now though.
See now Sterling appears to have a free role to move around the front line, and he's finding pockets of space very easily. I think this could be a long last few minutes for Arsenal.
Here is Mendy now for Manchester City. Phil Foden looking to receive possession. He went into a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge with Reiss Nelson there, and the Arsenal man's won his team a throw-in in the end. Bellerin unable to bring the ball forward. Foden putting pressure on him. Mustafi will play it long over the head of Aubameyang. Lacazette will chase it, but Rodri just guides the ball back to Edison in the Manchester City goal. Of course, we're bringing you live coverage of Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester United, which is the Friday night game. Jack Cunningham will be in the commentary seat alongside David Seymour for the analysis on that one. If you haven't already, sign up to the Hot Mic app using the promo code TFA2020. Give Total Football Analysis a follow, and that way you'll never miss a broadcast. You can also subscribe to the weekly magazine for all the industry-leading analysis that the team provide. And Lee, now feels like a great time for you to plug your Pep Guardiola book.
Mastering the Premier League is available. A book that I wrote detailing the tactical concepts of Manchester City. This is something that I think we've seen quite a lot of in this match. We've seen a lot of the things that I write about in the book cover in the book. So if you want to understand it a little bit more, it's available at the moment from all good booksellers.
Brilliant stuff. Do check it out as Manchester City go close again. This time Bernardo Silva swinging a left boot at it. Looked like it was quite a bit further wide than I initially thought, though, having taken a look at where the ball ended up. We just seemed step inside Kieran Tierney there and drive it towards that far post, but it was well wide in the end. Of course, Lee,
across the ball.
Lee, you've got another book on the way as well, looking at Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. Am I right? How can people pre-order that one? And when's it out?
Yeah, that's right. It's available at pre-order now. It'll be released at the end of August. Available at pre-order on all good booksellers again, Amazon, Waterstones, all those kind of places. Exactly the same concept as the one that I wrote in Manchester City, looking at tactical concepts behind Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp. So hopefully people will enjoy it when it comes out.
I'm sure they will. They're on my to-read list. As I said, off-air at half-time, watching games with Lee has changed my outlook on football completely, and I'm sure if you read his books, yours would change too. Here's Sergio Aguero with another opportunity into the side netting. Got his head in his hand, Sergio Aguero.
That's the kind of position Aguero takes up so well, and we're not used to seeing him miss the target from there. But look how easy it was for City just to play through Arsenal now. Arsenal are looking very tired.
And we always talk about going across the goalkeeper, but Sergio Aguero is one of the very best at hitting that near post, isn't he? The sort of the angle between bar and post and that roof of the net. He's very good at finding that space.
Yeah, he tends to elevate the ball. As we saw there, he tends to elevate the ball in those areas and try to aim high at the goalkeeper's near post. Very difficult to get your hands up to block. As you say, we always talk about strikers going across the goalkeeper, and goalkeepers are expecting that to a point. So it can be difficult when Aguero has very little backlift to his shots. He just has the technique to strike the ball with power, and it's difficult to read exactly where he's going.
It is indeed, and we've just seen that statistic across the screens. Manchester City have had 19 attempts at goal compared to Arsenal's 2. It tells you the story, how tonight's game has gone.
And those 2 for Arsenal were quite early on in the match as well. At the beginning, early stages, it looked as though that Arsenal did have a chance to make an imprint in this match, but City have just gradually turned up the quality.
Maitland-Niles plays the ball in behind for Alexander Lacazette to the left of Manchester City's penalty area. Delivers it low across the box. Looked as though he was trying to cut it back for Reece Nelson. Aubameyang gave him an option at the near post, and in the end he found neither. Bukayo Saka will take the throw-in on that far side. 97.5 minutes played. And after a long break for football, there'll be plenty of Arsenal fans out there feeling it's normal service resumed. Away against one of the big 6. And suffering a heavy defeat. Here's Reece Nelson. Cuts it back. There's Aubameyang opportunity. Manchester City defender just got a foot in there. Prevented the Gabonese striker from adding to his account.
We're seeing Aubameyang try to be more active, though. He's trying to play more centrally to try and get those opportunities. That's twice now. He's been in the penalty area looking for opportunities from a cutback.
Reece Nelson's going to take the resulting corner for the Arsenal. On this right-hand side, he's right-footed, so it's going to be an outswinger. Get it clear at the near post. Of course, earlier on, the Premier League got back underway in the game between Aston Villa and Sheffield United. It was a 0-0 draw in the end, but I mean, there was a real controversial decision in the first half. The Aston Villa goalkeeper certainly carried that ball over the goal line. How on earth that wasn't given, and how on earth the goal line technology, which has normally been so reliable, managed to make a mess of that.
Yeah, it appears to just have failed. I mean, I think they've came out after the match with a statement from Hawkeye, the company who provided goal mouth technology, but you could see at the time the referee gesturing to his watch to say his watch hadn't vibrated to say it was a goal. It was certainly over the line.
In other news, Napoli have won the Coppa Italia for defeating Juventus on penalties.
I think that might be Rino Gattuso's first trophy as a coach.
Yeah, I think you're right. Here's Raheem Sterling. I understand that Ronaldo was supposed to be the 5th penalty taker and he didn't even get to take one. The game was lost already. Milik with the decisive penalty for Napoli. Elsewhere, Atletico Madrid lead Osasuna by 2-0. João Felix with a brace there. 57 minutes played so far. We're into the 100th minute here at the Etihad. Kevin De Bruyne has been given the man of the match for Sky Sports. Lee, would you agree with that?
I would, yeah. I think when he was in the pitch, he really affected the game. Obviously had the assist for the first goal and then scored the penalty for the second goal. But it was more than that. It was the control that he showed, his ability to move into positions, to move into spaces, to get possession of the ball. I think that was key for City, and as they tried to really enforce their play in the first half. Don't forget, it was still 0-0 right up until the end of the first half. Arsenal were very much in this game, and it was the ability of Kevin De Bruyne that really has let them show their superiority on the day.
Final whistle's gone here at the Etihad Stadium. It's Manchester City 3, Arsenal 0. And you can see that look of disappointment on Mikel Arteta's face. Pep Guardiola giving him a sort of a pat on the back there. I'm sure they'll have words after this one. Two very good friends and two people with huge respect for one another. But Manchester City were just too good for the Gunners on the night. An individual error from David Luiz allowed them to take the lead, and then he made another absolute howler at the start of the second half, conceded a penalty and was sent off, allowing Kevin De Bruyne to double City's lead from the spot before Phil Foden added a third and ensured that Manchester City took all 3 points. My huge thanks to every single one of you who's tuned in, whether it's on the TFA YouTube channel, the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel, or the Hot Mic app. If you haven't downloaded it already, please do so. Use the promo code TFA2020 and give us a follow. That way you will never miss a broadcast. My thanks to Lee Scott once again. And Lee will be joining me on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast tomorrow. And we'll be able to look into this one with calmer heads as well. So stay tuned for that as well. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Ciao.